So today I'll take you through what this JIT frontend for Harvest is all about, what it brings to your table, and how you can create a solution that involves both JIT and Harvest, and how you can draw benefits from both of them. All right. So I just thought before I start with the JIT front-end introduction, I'll just do a very quick recap of what are all the new features that we added in CA Harvest SCM V14 release. The first one is JIT front-end itself, which is the current focus area of this presentation. And then we have the REST API enablement. REST APIs, Harvest has started building REST APIs from version 13.04. Wherein we have given the first set of REST APIs involving users and user groups. Now we in V14 we again added another bunch of REST APIs. You can actually refer to the documentation if you are interested in that. I'm not going to explain on that. And then we have the improved delete version. If you are a regular Harvest user, you might have faced difficulties in deleting all the versions. Say you have an experimental package and you want to delete all the versions in it. So Harvest would insist on deleting them in a particular pattern, like say you'll have to delete X and then Y and then Z. So which is a cumbersome process. So now what we did is we added a delete version process at the package level, so that you if by any chance you have an experimental package and you want to clean it up completely, you can just right click on the package and do a delete versions, which deletes all of them. And additional advantage of this improved delete version is that it's much better than a regular delete version process. So that's all about improved delete version. And then we have the atomic commit. I don't think I need to introduce this. It's atomic commit is all about doing everything together. Either say for example, I'm checking in 10 files and there is a problem with one file. Either all of them should fail or all of them should get through if there is no problem at all with all the 10 files. So that's about atomic check-in. Again, atomic check-in can be enabled at multiple levels, at the process level, at the global level. You can refer to the documentation on that. And then we have the Jenkins plugin and a couple of other certifications like Oracle 19c, SQL Server, etc., etc. So with that said, let us focus on JIT frontend today. Right. So what is this all about? So JIT frontend is for Harvest is letting Harvest admins use Harvest as their backend repository, but then let the developers use JIT as their front-end development tool so that they can do their development in JIT and yet push all their changes back to Harvest so that you don't have to lose upon any of the features that you are using in Harvest, like say lifecycle management, or be it UDPs or any users, user management, etc., etc. So that you don't have to give up on what you are enjoying with Harvest right now and still let the developers use the JIT as their front-end development tool. Why I don't think I need to stress much upon this, because you guys are already inclined towards JIT. So your developers already know about it. So the new age developers generally are looking towards the better collaborations and distributed model that the JIT offers. So, and how we did this is the basic operations like creating a repository, creating a project, etc., etc. Basically, the administrator tasks are something that you need to do with Harvest clients. And once you do and set up everything in the administrator client of Harvest I'm referring to, then you can actually let the developers use it like a regular JIT, like a regular JIT repository, and then do the changes in their IDs and push them. We'll see how to do that in the coming slides. So it's all about letting the developers use JIT as their front end, and this primarily comes in the stage one. Let me actually move to the next slide. Yeah, so this is what I'm talking about. So if this is your life cycle, a sample life cycle, say you have an entry stage, which is the development stage, and then you have test, pre-prod, and production. And the changes start from dev and they progress to production, right? So then we introduce this new command, JIT harvest clone, which clones the repository that is there in Harvest, and it it gets cloned like a regular Git repository. We'll see that in the demo. And once you have that local Git repository, you can load it into IDE of your choice, do the development there, and simply do a push pull. Like how you treat, you can just start doing the actions like how you treat a regular Git repository. And the in the back end, what happens is when you do that, all the changes, when, for example, if you're doing a push, all the changes that you did on the local repository ever since you have checked out the code from Harvest, I mean to say, ever since you did the Git Harvest clone, will be replayed on Harvest, meaning Harvest versions will be created for the same, and they'll all be put together in a package so that you can then start moving those packages to test, pre-prod, production, etc., etc. So that is this all about. So with that said, let me show you. Yeah, so these are the things that I'm going to cover in this demo. First, we will look at the administrator persona who creates the repository, loads the repository, creates the JIT project, baselines, etc., etc. And then he actually, one additional step that we do here is creating this JIT harvest configuration file, which serves as the base for the developers. So the developers don't have to, so this configuration file essentially is a context which captures all the information of Harvest, and using this one single file, developers can simply clone the repository and then start using it like how they use it, how they use a regular Git repository. And then we have the merge engineer persona who actually does the merging part. After the developer checks in the code and he completes his side of tasks, a notification will be sent to merge engineer, and merge engineer picks it up from there, and he merges the code to whatever branch he wants to merge it to. So that is about the three personas here. With that said, let me get into the demonstration and then I'll show you how to perform each of the operations. All right. So this is my Harvest administrator console. I already have a couple of repositories here. All right. So if I am to create, the first step one is to create a new repository. So if you see this, there is one JIT option here. This is something that is added newly, except this rest all tabs look the same, like how you create a regular Harvest repository. But when you want to use it for JIT repos, the only thing that you need to take care of is to check this option. So you just give it a name and check this option and click OK. A JIT repository will be created in Harvest. I'm not going to go about each of the step in detail because it and the benefit of time, I already have a set of repositories configured. I'll show you how to carry out each step, and then I'll use the existing ones for the demonstration purpose. All right, so the only thing that you need to take care of is this JIT option here, essentially, and that creates a JIT repository just like this one. Okay, and coming to the projects, creating a project is also the same. It has this, when you say you want to say, for example, you want to generate a project out of this release model, you just have to give it a name and check this JIT project checkbox. That's all. Rest all is essentially the same, same like how you do for a regular Harvest project, and that creates a JIT project. So that'll be the step two. Step three is baselining the JIT project with the JIT repository that we have created in step one. This is again the same, absolutely no change. The only thing is that if you have created a JIT repository, you'll have to baseline a JIT, if you are creating a JIT project, you have to baseline a JIT repository to it. If you're selecting a non-JIT repository, meaning existing Harvest repositories, you'll not be able to do that because what we essentially do when we load this JIT repository is we'll create the JIT metadata required for carrying out the JIT operations. So that is the reason why you need to baseline a JIT repository to a JIT project. So for example, for this one, I have already baselined this Active Directory search repository, which is a JIT repository. All right. So that'll be the step 4 here. And then we need to, yeah, there's one more thing that I need to tell here, which is this. Yeah, say for example, master is only for merge engineers. No, you don't want any of the developers to directly check in the code to master branch, which will usually be the case. If you go for GitHub or anything like that, you will be having something called pull requests, wherein somebody has to approve it and the merge engineer merges it to the actual branch before letting the user to directly check in the changes on the master. So the way we achieve this in Harvest is, so we have a folder created for each of the branches in the repository, and we can actually give the permissions here. For example, this is only for the administrators. And if you look at the other branches, it'll be for public. So that's how we manage the access control. We were not letting all the developers to do changes on the master branch directly, right? So, and then creating the harvest config file. Here it is. So this is nothing but, uh, let me go to this developer workspace, right? So yeah, this is the one. So it just captures all the broker name and project name, state name, etc. Basically all the details of the harvest configuration, harvest project, whatever we have configured right now. It captures them and puts it in one single place, and that we are calling as a configuration file. This serves as input. This is where a developer will start his work from. So if you see, look at step one. Step one is cloning a repository from Harvest. So the input to this will be the configuration file. All right. And this file, this is the encrypted credentials file. We are referring to this file in the configuration. If you look at this one, this is the same thing. So instead of giving the bare passwords there, we can always give an encrypted file, like how we give it for typically any of the harvest commands. So now what I do is I will clone from using this configuration file. I will clone the repository that is hosted in Harvest. So this is the custom harvest command, which comes out with harvest installation. Git harvest, instead of doing a regular clone, developers have to do git harvest clone. This is the only harvest command that a developer needs to bother about. Rest all will be the rest of the flow will be exactly like how a typical git project flow happens, right? So this is the only place where developer has to interact with the harvest command, and that is like git harvest clone, and give the configuration file to it. So this checks out the repository, and it has put everything in this directory. Let me go there. Yeah, and by the way, this is a Visual Studio solution. If it is a Java project, you can open it in Eclipse, right? All right. So now see, let's say I have a defect at my hand. I wanted to work on a defect. So I want to edit this particular file. Okay, let's say I did a change to this particular file. I go to the changes tab, which shows me this one. Mark it for staging. And then typically we don't work on masters. Let me pick this defect branch. Right, so I changed my branch. All right, so I'm on the defect branch right now. So I give a comment and sorry, let me do the change again. Let me remove this junk here and save it. All right, this is on the defect branch, and yeah, this is the comment that I'm giving. I do a commit. Once the commit is done, I'll just do a push. So this pushes the changes to the Harvest server. It actually creates a package and then replicates all these changes what I've done locally on Harvest, and then it closes that package. So let's see. It says that Harvest synchronization is successful. So if you go to the packages tab and refresh it, you'll actually see this a new package getting created with the comment that we gave for the last commit. It picks that as the package name, and then it puts all the changes here. So that's how a push happens. You can also do a pull in case for me right now, since I'm the only one working, there'll be nothing to pull, obviously. But otherwise, if there are multiple developers working on it, they can simply pull and do a push to Harvest using this regular, like how they do a regular JIT pull and push. So that is about that completes the developer's persona. So then comes the merge engineer. So once this is done, you can actually configure it to get an email notification saying that somebody has checked in. User David has checked in this package and consider merging it to the master branch. So all the admins are going to, the merge engineers or whatever role you define them in Harvest, they're going to get a notification. And once a merge engineer gets a notification, we'll close this here and then we'll switch the role. I'll go to this merge engineers workspace. And again, the same thing continues. All we need to do is do a clone first. Which gives you a local repository, right? So then we can go to the directory and say git branch. We'll be seeing a couple of branches here. So this is the branch on which we can actually refer to the email to check which one got created just now, which is 2136. This is the one. And then I can do a git merge here. I can merge this branch here and then do a push. This is like a regular git flow, nothing specific to Harvest, right? It just says, yeah, merge is complete. And then I do a git push again, which automatically pushes the changes to Harvest. You can also do this with any of the IDs, or you can do it from command line also. Yeah, the Harvest synchronization again happens and it synchronizes the changes, just like how it happened with the developer. The only thing is that the merge engineer is actually merging the changes and then pushing them rather than creating fresh changes. Right? So it says success, and we can actually see one more package getting created, this time for the master. Right? See the master on the master branch with the same comment, and I'm not sure. Maybe some merge conflict I need have to resolve it, but otherwise it's going to be the same thing, except that the administrator is pushing on the master branch and the developer pushes to his private branches. So that is all about merge engine here. Okay. Uh, the one you're looking here is GIT. I have a local server installed. This is almost like GitHub, except that this comes as a free of cost. So that's the reason I thought of doing this for this demo, right? So the trick here is that I have written two scripts, a, a pre-receive and a post-receive script, which will do exactly the same what happens during a JIT push when I'm doing from a JIT repository. Whatever I've shown here, right? Sorry. Yeah. So when we do a push here, all the harvest commands that are getting called in the backend will be called from this hooks. So this is pretty much simple code, not more than 25 lines. Of course, I've taken some shortcuts and included hard-coded paths here, but we can always have environment variables for this and have this code written. So with these two scripts, I have achieved an equivalent uh, result, like what happens when we do a change from harvest. Let me actually go ahead and change one file. So if you see this UI pretty much looks like GitHub. You can actually have a pull request, whatever you're talking about right now. You can create new pull requests, and then have the approvals, all the comments, collaboration, everything happens here. And when you push the code, let me do a change to one of the files. Let me change this. Okay. I just did a change to this file, and then I'm checking in here directly from my web client. And then do a commit here. So now what happens is this is hosted inside GIT, which is a free hosting service that is deployed on my local host, right? So the check-in happens to that local hosting, the repository that is hosted in GIT. But because we have these hooks defined here, which call the harvest commands, harvest synchronization commands, they ultimately land up here. So this is my GT repository. Updated README for the demo. So this is the one that we have just done, and it creates this file here. So with this one, actually, we are not interacting with any JIT command, or harvest command, or any harvest terminologies here. You just do the change in the UI or in the clients, and then you can actually push the changes to harvest. So this is all about it, but this doesn't come out of the box. I had to write these scripts to achieve something similar to what happens when you do it from a IDE. Right. So that is all about it. So what I'm trying to say is that this is not something that is limited to what comes out of the box. We can actually extend the solution to create whatever we require. For example, if your requirement is to have the pull requests and actually we can do this with GitHub also. It'll be much more easier with GitHub.